So this is an enormous panel, and it could have been even bigger because, as you've probably noticed, all our participants pretty much talk about digital approaches and they touch on AI, so anybody could have been on this panel. And I'm delighted to have you 5 participants with me. Thank you very much indeed. We're going to talk about AI, but I just wanted to start with the digital provision of education. And Anna, let's begin with you. During the pandemic, of course, there was a sudden acceleration in the provision of learning via the internet. Online learning became the standard, and now things have presumably changed. So just bring us up to speed on where we are and where we're going with online learning.
So online learning has been around for 30, 40 years, but it really hit the scene around 2011, 2012. The New York Times called it the year of the MOOC, the massive open online courses, where really the key innovation at that time was how do we scale quality learning? And when the pandemic came around about 3 years ago, for the 10 years before that, a lot of universities around the world were offering online courses and building mechanisms and experiences with teaching online. So when the pandemic came, the whole world had to go online. Some universities did a good job. They used the best practices of online learning, like use things like active learning and other techniques. But most of the teachers went to very boring forms of just doing what they did in the classroom, but did that with the camera. And what people began to call death by Zoom. and that gave people a really bad taste in their mouth about online learning. And now when the pandemic has gone away, very unfortunately, my biggest fear has come true. I had hoped that when the pandemic came in, everybody went online, that it would stick. That the notion of digital learning would stick in universities, and people would adopt the blended model of learning where you learn 30, 40, 50, 60% online and the remaining time in person. And you got the best of both worlds. And the best of online and in person is simply far better than purely in person or purely online in terms of any metric you can think of. Learner engagement, access, equity, name it, you got it. But the sad part is that the pandemic is waned, and so has digital learning. And to me, that has been, I think, society's biggest lost moment.
Gosh, right. So when you talk about the blend of learning, what do you think is the piece that teachers provide and that online learning provides? How do they meld?
So I've been teaching at MIT for 35 years. And I suspect that 90% of the time I do stuff that computation or machines or AI could legitimately do a better job than I can. There are several teachers here, and I suspect you'll feel the same. But there are certain things that I do that I think humans can do well. So for instance, instead of giving lectures to large numbers of students, simply have them watch short videos online. It's much better. They can personalize it, they can speed it up, slow it down. It's much more personal. Grading. We can grade personally for students well before AI. And now with AI, we can even grade essays and provide deep feedback and all of this stuff. Much better than a human can. And one of the worst things that teachers, we all hate having those grading parties where we spend all day grading with pizzas. So all of those things can be automated. The part that we can do uniquely well as human beings is motivating students, spending time with students, looking them in the eye and tell them they matter, and talking to them, creating small groups, walking around them, inspiring them. That's the part that teachers can do well. Encouraging creativity, giving them, thinking of new creative design problems. These are things that teachers can do well. 80, 90% of what they do, let's relegate that to digital learning and AI.
Thank you. I'd like to get a couple of views on that. Lynn, you're at Boston College. Boston College has an awful lot of online courses and modular courses. Would you agree with what Anna just said?
Unfortunately, I think I would. And I think part of the reason why the pandemic waned and we sort of went back to business as usual is in some ways we never left business as usual, even during the pandemic. So the conversation here has been about digital learning, but I think it's really been more about digital schooling. We just sort of transferred everything that we do under normal circumstances into an online environment. But we didn't change the pedagogy. We didn't do more engaging things. In fact, I remember speaking to a principal. I was dean of the Faculty of Education at the University of Hong Kong, and so obviously was in conversation with school people all the time. And I remember during the pandemic, a principal saying to me with great pride that he had finally gotten to the point where he had replicated exactly the number of hours, the content, what teachers were doing online. And he's actually a pretty wonderful principal who does pretty wonderful things in his school. So it was a bit surprising to hear this, but this notion of simply moving it became sort of a geographic thing as opposed to a conceptual thing. So I think we have a long way to go before we get to this idea of deep learning and moving away from the familiar, and the fact that we still continue to define teaching as someone standing up and telling other people something.
Thank you. And Liz, from the perspective of high schools?
Yes, and I would like to add to that, I think we miss that in order for learning to happen, in order for, let's take digital learning, and kids are learning at home, we have to partner with parents, and we have to partner with the students and the environment within which the children live. Because without that, we can have this philosophical debate of all these great things that the digital platforms can do, but we have to factor in it's not just the digital screen and the child, it is whether that child has someone at home that is able to support them, let's say that even if they had the device to work with, and also what kind of background the parents come with, whether they have the time or they are working and therefore they can't be with them. I think there has to be greater conversations about how to make learning happen. It doesn't just happen because we take certain lectures and put it online and therefore now you have access to that, now let's do something else. There are many children that can't possibly do something else because a school was a safe haven for them. It took them from a place where it's not so good for them and it gave them a place to be. The pandemic taught us that when that happened, a lot of sad things has happened. And I think we have to build a partnership and education for everybody on how to rear children and support them in the best way. Parents didn't know what to do with this. Teachers didn't know what to do with this. And we were throwing teachers into it and say, figure it out. And if you can replicate what we've been doing in school, that must be right. But out of that, I think we need to realize that it's not. We have to rethink all of that and build a partnership with the community.
Michael, do you want to comment on this?
So I personally made a very early online class, 2003. It consisted of 600 two-minute animations that I made with PowerPoint. I actually called them talklets, and I think I was the first person to use that term. It was a huge amount of work. I think each hour of talklet was at least 10 or 20 hours of my time. Having made it, I then gave it at Stanford instead of giving a life course for about 10 years, and I found that I actually got much better feedback from the video classes, from the interactive talklet classes, than from online classes. But it is very, very difficult to make good online contact, and I think that the AI tools can really help improve content. It is a hard problem. I'm not surprised that it isn't like, I also totally agree. During the pandemic, I was actually working very, very hard on COVID, as Adam and others know, and I had collaborators, and what I really lacked was standing around a whiteboard. And I kept on trying to use digital whiteboards, and then suddenly the time lag. If you have a collaborator in California, Europe, and China, it's impossible to find a time zone overlap. So there are really fundamental problems of this sort of global collaboration. But I think that the real answer is a mixture. And we use online for what online is good for. I also believe that people need to learn from anything. People need to be able to learn from any material, because we're going to have to learn all our lives. Things are changing so dramatically, we should never stop learning. So we should actually learn how to learn from anything. And that's a hard lesson. It basically involves not being fooled. we should not be fooled by fake news. And that's going to be an important exercise. So I think if there was a class in how not to be fooled by fake news and how to ask the right questions, that's the kind of skills we need.
Indeed. We at Nobel Prize Outreach are trying to collaborate, are in the process of collaborating on a project to have courses in critical thinking which address this, and of course many other people are doing similar things around the world. We entirely agree on the importance of this. Jaebong, please.
I actually wrote a book named Pono Sapiens. As Pono means phone in Latin, and sapiens is Homo sapiens. You know what I mean? People change it from Homo sapiens to Phono sapiens. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. So we are Homo sapiens, right? But students, I thought I watched young students, they use YouTube to learn a lot of times. And they know that old people are not that smarter than like AI or YouTube or many very outstanding contents in the YouTube. They realized that from here in Korea, they could watch and learn like Stanford University professor lectures and MIT lectures anytime, anywhere. So they believe that this is a good way to learn. And they changed the attitude, and they met pandemic. Even that case, junior school, high school teachers, they quit, and they linked in Korea, like some online lectures. So they couldn't meet teachers in school, and parents were not helpful in that case. So they learned it from the online contents, and think about it, and they know that if I want to become successful, I have to learn a lot. So they start to depend on online environment more and more. People are evolving, right?
Yeah.
So they have different window from us. So I think because the education is for them, so we have to see from their window what's going to happen to next 10 years, 5 years, not to came back to old days. So that's what I think we have to do first.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, because listening, I mean, I was wondering how much we have to avoid being top down here, and that there is a new generation who are so savvy with these tools. And certainly the young people I talk to seem to think that they know how to educate themselves. They may not do so, but there's a certain confidence about that. Does that worry you, Liz?
I think to say that our students are naturally better at certain digital tools, I think is a bit dangerous. I don't think so. I think they're born into it. I think it exists. And especially if we use a term like digital natives, I think it's a misnomer. I think if we are natives of any nation, you would teach them the laws and what to do and what not to do. But I think when the children have this access that are given to them for adults to assume they know what to do with and they're really talented, what we see in the schools is that they might know certain things, but they definitely need someone with some wisdom to have conversations with them and facilitate what it is that they're doing with what is in their hands. I think to assume they know so much better than us, yes, with some things, but we need that conversation of what to do with what is in their hands. And I think that's the learning that needs to take place. And that conversation needs to be, so that leads into my argument that teachers are incredibly important. And teachers need to listen to their students and sit next to them. And that's what assessment means, not just give them a piece of paper and test, but sit next to them and see what they know, see what they can learn. And I don't mean just the student from the adult, I mean the adult from the student as well. And put them together, and that should be what learning looks like. And I think it's a very dangerous thing to assume that our students know what to do in the digital age. because what I've seen, they actually don't know that.
Okay, thank you. I'd like comments on that, please. Anand?
Yeah, I think, we need to get some disagreement on the panel, so I'll respectfully disagree.
I like it.
I think in most schools and colleges, it's us older people, older professors, that are creating how students should learn. I'll tell you a story. At MIT, I wanted to do an experiment. This was 6 or 7 years ago, where I said, right, a lot of my colleagues argued, online learning is no good, it's got to be in person, I have to be there, the sage on stage, I'm the person to teach. And then I said, right, how about we do an A/B test, where half the class takes an online class, half the students take your in-person class, and then we give them a common exam, and we measure things like satisfaction, stress. And first of all, the shocking part was one of my colleagues said, wait, if I don't teach, if it's digital, if I don't lecture, then what do I do? And I had to explain to them that lecturing is only one small facet of teaching. But we did this test, and what we found was that students absolutely loved the digital model. Now, these were on-campus matriculated students studying, paying tuition at MIT. Exam scores were similar on the purely digital or online. The stress levels of the students doing the online class was a whole standard deviation lower. And the reasons they gave were that we could do things that flexibility. You can watch the videos whenever you want. The most common video watching time, midnight to 2 a.m. Why do we drag them to class at 8 o'clock in the morning? So students in Seoul, how many of you enjoy being dragged to class at 8 o'clock in the morning? Raise your hand. Not a single hand has gone up. I think the key here is that we need to listen to the students. They all are digital natives. They really enjoy pacing themselves. Most people watch my videos from MIT online at 2x the speed, and they mute the professor, and they read the transcript. The professors don't like being muted, but the students want to mute the professor, speed the video up, and read the transcript. So I think we need to be listening to people. I think it's more flexible. Grading, they want multiple tries. And so this way they can try and answer multiple times to get the answer. So all of these things lead to lower stress.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Anyone want to make a burning comment? Michael?
So I strongly agree with Adam's conjecture. I think students really do know how to learn. And I have a lot of grandchildren, so I can relate to their experiences. And it seems that online learning is quite amazing. The other thing to point out is that very, very soon, all language barriers will go away. Really soon. Within probably 2 or 3 years, it doesn't matter what language it's in, it'll be translated to your own language. So this is something which AI will definitely be doing. I think that we always tend to think that the young generation doesn't know things, but the young generation so far has always been smarter than their parents. And I think the young generation that grows up with large language models will be a lot smarter than their parents. So I think that kids can really play a very important role in their own education. It'll happen anyway. I mean, and it may be through TikTok. It may be through media that we don't spend time on. I think it really is a rapidly changing world, and I think any assumption that we think we know what we're doing is probably a mistake.
Okay, thank you. Now, I think we might have a potential argument breaking out in the panel here, which is good, or at least a disagreement. What I'd like to do is for us to talk about this quietly on the panel for a couple of minutes, and I'd like you, perhaps, to talk to each other. Now, so we're just going to raise the lights for 2 minutes, and if you want to, you could turn to your neighbor and tell them your best or worst experience of online learning so far. In the context of the discussion we're having, it would be very nice to share with you. The dialogue is all about talking to each other, so now's your chance. So we'll give you 2 minutes together to do it. That's 1 minute to talk to your neighbor and 1 minute for your neighbor to talk to you. If you don't want to do it, it's fine. It's 2 minutes to check your phone. Feel free. But anyway, lights go up, microphones go down on here. See you in 2 minutes' time. Please, talk to each other. So, there's a
like to hear conversations happening, right?
Yeah.
Are we back?
I like
Yes.
People like talking.
Yeah.
Thank you. It was lovely to hear the bubble of your conversations. And please do continue over coffee when we have the coffee break. Thank you. In those 2 minutes, we reach consensus on the panel. Liz can sum it up quickly.
I
Very
think the consensus was that it's not necessarily a disagreement we're having. We actually agree on the topics that were said, that we have come to the agreement that we're talking about two different things, right? So everything that Anand and Michael said in the way that, students learn, our whole point was that with all the access that they have, we have to be able to talk about it together and coach each other, the young and the old, and figure out what it is that we're trying to learn. And with the devices in hand, we got into a bigger topic even about who's creating that curriculum. That should be where that conversation continues, right? What are we getting our students to learn, and why is that important? And when we test them to see what they know, what are we testing? And what are we saying is important information for you to actually take away? So I think we're talking about two different things. Within technology, there are a lot of apps, a lot of different ways that we can kind of continue to spread that conversation. But yes, in essence, right, it wasn't necessarily a disagreement on online learning.
Thanks. Thanks very much indeed. Jae-bong, you were talking, we were chatting earlier about this young generation of super entrepreneurs and CEOs and how they network. Can you just talk about that as we lead into the conversation on AI, which we have a short time?
Well, actually, the students, they need a role model. Oh, I want to become that kind of guy, right? And the most famous guy in the United States is, definitely Elon Musk. The second Elon Musk is, his name is Austin Russell. He was born in 1995. So he's 28 years old. He founded the company at the age of 17 in high school. And he was very much interested in science and technology, coding, etc. And he founded the company in his dad's garage. So the name of garage was Applied Science and Technology Lab. So his brother coached him a lot, and he learned a lot from the digital environment. He attended a course from MIT, Stanford, California, everywhere. And he founded it, and he went to Stanford University, and he stayed in there for 3 months and quit it, because the investor wants him to quit and focus on the company. So now he's a billionaire. He became the billionaire at the age of 24. And what he made was LiDAR, which catches the autonomous car, that it detects the human or whatever
Machine learning,
using radar. That's very, very difficult product, but he made it, and that's the company name is Luminar.
Yeah.
Even he actually got the Forbes, the magazine. Yeah.
But the example is that these are examples of people who are making their own networks, moving very fast, kind of cutting through all the rules that most people live by, and are somehow advancing things very fast. Why are these people role models? I suppose is the question. Very briefly.
Because students don't take a look at any TV or newspaper, right? Teenagers. But in the community, wow, this guy is famous. This guy is famous. And then, only 10 years older, his brother, right? Feeling like a brother and looking young. And even he made the multi-million donations to society already. So, this guy's good. And what I'm saying is, they like a BTS, Blackpink, and Austin Russell as well, right? And he only took 1 year university education, right? Not 3 months education. So they thought, how they become so smart? It's not schooling, right? It's from everywhere. So what I'm saying is, as Anand said, it's not, school, go to school and give them, laptop and do something. It's not working. Yeah, we have to make education contents to adapt them in their viewpoint and introduce some people like that. Like science and technology, there are so many students who want to be an academic star like Austin Russell. He's an entrepreneur, but I want to be like a Nobel Prize professor or researcher someday. And what's contents for them?
Okay.
Where are they? That's what I want to say. So we have to do some, develop some good educational contents for them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So Michael, as one of the role models just mentioned.
So we don't have a lot of time left. I just wanted to say that we now have all heard about these large language models that have learned so much.
Yeah.
And I actually think if we look at how they learn as a machine, we might be able to understand better about how we should learn as humans. And one of the main mechanisms behind these large language models is something called generative adversarial network, GAN. But in fact, a much simpler term is fake it till you make it. So essentially, you have two students. Let's imagine Adam and I are both totally ignorant of Korean. But we're shown some Korean, and Adam is trying to fake it by giving me sentences in Korean to try to get past me, a bit like a game. And I'm trying to say, no, that isn't real Korean, this is real Korean. And if we do this, and when I get it right, I get a point, and when he manages to fool me, he gets a point. This method is incredibly powerful. It is how computers draw art, it is how computers fold proteins, it is how computers translate languages, it's how computers do almost everything that they do. The advantage is that there's a symmetry. It's not like I'm really scared of Adam because he's the teacher or he's the faker. It's a game, and we both learn together. And I think that this could be really used very much in education. I think it's a big way from here. The teachers in these large language models that are also human beings who give them scoring for once they've learned, score them for the quality of the answers, how good they are, generalization, and things like that. But I think it seems to be an amazingly good way to learn something where you try to fake it and somebody tries to stop you faking it. The discriminator stops me faking, I'm the generator. So this model is really worth learning about. I think teachers should be studying it, because I do think it has been amazingly successful at teaching, if you like, a really stupid block of metal to become as smart as a human being.
I think in this relationship, Michael, I think it's clear that you're the teacher and I'm the faker, but we'll move.
Yeah. we switch roles out of it.
Lynn, you've been quiet for a while. Do you want to comment on this?
Well, there's just so many things going on in this conversation. And I'm fascinated by this GAN. And I'm interested in asking Michael, so if you tried to insert that into teacher preparation, what would that look like?
I think I would, as a teacher, firstly play with it. I think I've met a lot of teachers who ask me about, say, ChatGPT. And I would say you should be spending 2 hours a day on ChatGPT, just asking it stupid questions, asking how you can fix the fight with your kids or anything, because it just is an amazing experience. And like anything smart, you have to spend time on it. I think a lot of the questions, my answer has to be, I don't know. But I think we are all going to become much smarter in the next few years, and we have answers to these questions. But I do think my wife actually spent 30 years teaching education at the University of Tel Aviv, and she was telling me that self-analysis is really important. You shouldn't write an essay. You should write a diary about how you write an essay, and then this is what you look at. You shouldn't read. You should actually write a diary about how you read and how you're distracted. So I think more self-observation is very important. But I think teachers can be really important in giving these perspectives, these vistas. I mean, one trouble with the internet is there's everything out there. Where do you start? And I think, putting students in the right direction could be very, very powerful. And I think letting them, do the hard work for you. Let them grade each other. I think that you need to be a supervisor. Whereas a lot of teaching, and often people say, I learn most, often lecturers who make a new class say, I learned most from preparing the course. Because you do learn a huge amount from trying to teach. But that should be used at the level of the students as well.
On that 2 hours on ChatGPT, it would be interesting to know who in the audience, hands up, spends 2 hours a day on ChatGPT. I suppose some of the students know their teachers are in the room, so they may be a bit shy about this, but nobody. 1 hour on ChatGPT a day. We're beginning. Half an hour? People who look at ChatGPT sometimes.
Wow.
It's, I'd say it's still the minority.
It's not enough.
It's growing up. No, not enough.
Yep. As I said, Adam, last night, we all have to learn to love ChatGPT. Not to be frightened, because the fact remains that a person with ChatGPT is 50% smarter. Become that way.
In Seonggyun University, you have a very difficult time to pronounce that. We had a survey after first semester, and then asked them, did you use ChatGPT during one semester? And they said 96% said yes. Yeah, and then was it helpful? 87% said it was very helpful. So I think actually it's correct.
There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear among teachers that ChatGPT and technologies like that simply provide an answer. Students can go to it like a web search, type a question, they get an answer, and that will completely kill teaching and learning. The trick here is that you can work, as a teacher, you can work with ChatGPT in a way that ChatGPT does not give an automatic answer. This kind of engineering is a new form of engineering called prompt engineering, and this is becoming extremely popular. Everybody should learn about it. So everybody should take a course on prompt engineering. And what we've done at edX, for example, is as part of our courses, we've introduced a teaching assistant based on ChatGPT. And we've been able to train AI to not give answers. So when students ask a question of AI, AI does not answer the question. AI behaves like a great teacher. What does a great teacher do? If I ask a great teacher, how do you add 4 plus 4? The teacher might say, do you know, what do you know how to add? And the teacher might come back with the Socratic question and teach by asking questions. That's a Socratic method and goes back to your adversarial networks. So what we've done is you can train ChatGPT and AI to teach by asking questions. And so this way, students can actually learn better. So I would encourage all teachers here to actually try those techniques. And you can actually train ChatGPT to actually help students like a great teacher would, and not just regurgitate answers.
Thank you. Well, brilliantly, you finished things off at the end of our time by bringing things back to the importance of teachers, whether they're generative or actual. So thank you very much to all of you for this discussion and to the audience for participating. And now we're done. We should get up and let them clear the stage.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.